We are here with CBSN political contributors Nomiki Konst, Kevin Sheridan, and Hogan Gidley. And Nomi, we'll start with you. It was thought that there were far more paths for Hillary Clinton, that there was one path, and that threading the whole of that needle was going to be, infinitesimally effective for Donald Trump, and yet it was electorally perhaps something of a landslide. Pennsylvania, though, thought it was a state she was going to have. She did not have it by any measure. What do you think happened there?
I was in Pennsylvania yesterday, and I went to some districts in southern Pennsylvania, northwest Pennsylvania, Germantown, and I also went to the suburbs, in some of the districts where they said that Donald Trump was going to do his best. I was shocked. The polls were, the majority of people I ran into said they were supporting Hillary Clinton. So I have no idea what happened in Pennsylvania. I think we're going to have to dig our heads a little bit more into the numbers, but I think we all can see through the exit polls, it was the white working class vote that we keep saying over and over. And that's what we said in 2015. That's what we said when we were talking about Joe Biden. That's what the Democrats knew. They've had that problem for a long time. Barack Obama won that, but let's remember why Barack Obama won that. We were on the verge of an economic collapse. We were on the verge of two wars, a very unpopular Republican president. And let's not forget that President, at the time, Senator Barack Obama, won a lot of Republicans that I think Hillary Clinton was also banking on. She didn't get those Republicans that she probably needed in her numbers, and she didn't get the white working class women and men. And that's a problem. You can't win in 2016, still to this day, with those numbers, the way that the Electoral College works. You can't win off of cities.
Quickly, as a Bernie Sanders supporter, do you think, or which lessons perhaps do you think the Clinton campaign didn't learn from what we saw from Senator Sanders? Specifically, as I felt like really as day became early morning and we all stared at Michigan.
Yep.
It was not lost, I think, on a lot of people that were staring at a state that Hillary Clinton did not win in the primary. What do you think? What do you think Hillary Clinton could have learned from your candidate?
A little bit of hubris, understanding that the policies of the 90s got us into the situation we are today in the Democratic Party, where there's those schisms. Understanding it's the economy, stupid. There was a lot of identity politics, very important, very, very important. Not a lot of here are the solutions that are going to fix your problems. Donald Trump was saying solutions. I'm not saying that they're right. I'm not saying that they were detailed, but he was talking about them. She was going out there and she had policies galore on her website. Check out her website. No one's going to sit there and read a 14-page policy. She had to be able to communicate to these people. Secretary Clinton had the strongest campaign in history, in my opinion. The best data, more money than God, all the media support, super PACs, and she could win a primary that way. But when there's movement, when there's a democracy, it's really tough to control that. And, Bernie Sanders did win that. He did win those numbers, and those people wanted Donald Trump second. And she had to look at that in the primaries. It was first Bernie Sanders with white working class voters, and then it was Donald Trump.
I have a question. I actually have a question and a comment. You just said something that just sparked something in me. That's the second movement that Hillary Clinton has lost to. First it was Barack Obama, and now this one. My question to you is, being a former Bernie Sanders supporter, how angry and did it impact the vote, depress Bernie Sanders' vote in support of Hillary Clinton, to see those DNC emails and all the things that the Bernie Sanders people speculated on, they knew it in their core, but speculated on, to see the DNC cook the books for Hillary? Did that depress the vote at all?
It might have depressed it a little bit. I think that the FBI scandals depressed the Republican numbers that she needed to win. I think she was banking on those Republican voters, those female Republicans, to turn out, and they didn't. I think when they got to the polls, they said, you know what, I'm voting down my party line first. I think she won with progressives. I think she got enough millennials. And some of the immediate reports back from the Clinton campaign was they went and they blamed millennials. Those numbers started to change right away, and they saw that enough millennials turned out, enough progressives turned out. Not at Barack Obama rates. She didn't do as well with Latinos. She didn't do as well with African Americans and with younger people, but enough that it fell within their margins. Where she fell was with white working class voters, and that's a massive failure on her part.
Kevin, Hillary Clinton was lashed to the side of Barack Obama for the last few weeks of this campaign. Her candidacy was basically predicated on a continuation of the last 8 years. This president worked harder for her as a surrogate than possibly any president in modern American political history. And yet we're hearing that she was no Barack Obama. So the question is, was this a repudiation of Barack Obama and his policies, or was this just Hillary Clinton wasn't Barack Obama?
Barack Obama's never had coattails, though. I don't know if it's a repudiation. We're going to have to really dig into the data and focus group the heck out of it to find out whether or not people, because he does have a 55% approval rating right now, the highest he's ever had. But I think it's because the spotlight's been off his agenda. It's comparative to the other two candidates who are both disliked, including our president-elect. In the polls, and I think he's a likable guy. So people look at that and they think, well, approval. I don't know what that means. I generally like him. But then you get to the voting booth and you see change, you see a vision, whether or not you agree with everything about it, versus somebody who's just running on their experience and their resume. And we've seen that before. We saw it. I mean, honestly, Mitt Romney and John McCain were two candidates like that.
But running explicitly to continue the things that theoretically these same white working class voters like. That I think is the most confusing, addling thing about this entire set of results.
But what else did she want to get done? She's got kind of a mishmash of a couple of standard liberal positions that she wants to get done. It was never a compelling vision that I ever understood. If somebody could explain it to me, I'd love to hear it. It was, and she right from the start, she said, I'm the most experienced, and that was what she was going to be elected, and I'm a woman, so I'm a historic candidate. So it was a biographical and experience-driven candidacy, and that wasn't enough versus something that was a vision and a time when people wanted to change.
Well, to pull back even further, it also, history suggested the American electorate has little interest in giving either party a third consecutive run at things. And, other than Reagan, HW, this is, it's hard enough. And when in an atmosphere where change was king, I guess some of those numbers were staring everyone straight in the face.
And I think that's because parties have blind spots. I think that the Democratic Party has a major blind spot. President Obama was an extraordinary candidate who was elected under extraordinary circumstances. Meaning we had a recession that fell right before the election. The map was already in his favor, but and he came out of a very unpopular presidency, meaning George W. Bush. With that being said, the Democratic Party became a fundraising institution. We lost over 1,000 seats in 8 years. We lost state level, governorship, Senate. The list goes on. And to think that Secretary Clinton would be able to run on what President Obama had, not being President Obama, with a new demographic coming of age that clung to, they'd sit there and they'd see Bernie Sanders talk about economic policies for an hour and a half. Something was happening there. It wasn't Katy Perry, it wasn't Lady Gaga, it wasn't Beyonce. Something else was happening.
It's Ted Nugent.
Yeah. Wait, that could be the secret weapon.
Oh my God,
I would argue to you, could it be something as simple as disruption sells at this moment? Bernie Sanders had an incredibly disruptive message. Donald Trump most certainly did. Hillary Clinton did not.
But remember, for the better part of 20 years now, we've seen at the congressional and Senate level these candidates ratchet up their rhetoric in order to rake in PAC dollars to get on Fox News or MSNBC or CNN, because otherwise they don't get on those TV shows. And if, God forbid, you actually take a picture with a president or a senator from another party, then that's the mailer for your primary challenger right there.
This is something you were saying yesterday, and it really seems so that we are in a celebrity-obsessed, social media-driven age. We've also seen this before, that the candidate that could marshal the technology of the moment had a huge advantage. And again, for all the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars raised by Democrats, by the Clinton campaign specifically, in Donald Trump, he understood the real efficacy of 140 or fewer characters with a couple exclamation points, getting to 10 million people. And by the way, it was 10 million or however many million followers he had retweeted hundreds of thousands of times, and you're spending the same amount of time with it that you would be on an ad buy. Cult of personality then, Kevin. when we write the story of 2016, how big is that chapter?
So for political professionals like us, it's going to be hard to go to a candidate and say, do that. No one is Donald Trump, and it's never going to be duplicated. He is unique unto himself, and he captured lightning in a bottle, and it was amazing how he did it. He pursued a cult of personality campaign that was derived over 35, 40 years in the public spotlight. He developed that from, he went from page 6 to, the back sports pages to the New York Times, and now he's the president of the United States. It's amazing.
And I don't think the people out there, we've talked about them being angry for a while now. I don't think Donald Trump made them angry or got them riled up. I think they were already there. Polls showed them being frustrated with the government. They wanted change. I think he was able to weaponize it to make, I guess, to become president, to speak to, I hear you, I'm with you, I understand, I'm angry too. You have someone who can be a sounding board, who doesn't care about political correctness. The time for that is over. Let's talk about how we put America first. They were already angry. And I've said this before, but the DNC and the RNC, I think, just completely ignored that or didn't believe it, one of the two. And now we see the ramification of that ignorance is that a guy comes in with unbelievably qualified and seasoned politicians with years and decades of experience on the Republican side, and he beat them all 7 weeks before Hillary could beat 4 people.
What surprises me when you talk about the anger is I think we've talked a lot about angry men. But in terms of women, women college graduates, Hillary Clinton only won them by 6 points. Donald Trump 45, Hillary Clinton 51. That is unprecedented.
It scares me.
So is it that women were a lot angrier than we thought? Donald Trump won white women.
I can't answer that question. I think that Secretary Clinton, they put a lot of money around defaming Donald Trump and how he respects women. And I thought that would work. It worked on me.
Gender was a huge issue in this election.
Big deal. But I think women are also known to look at the economy more than men when it comes to making these decisions. And again, she didn't talk about trade issues. She came out against TPP, but she was really for TPP. Let's just be honest here. she and Tim Kaine are for TPP.
But trade for women, white women with college degrees,
it's true.
We're told is not so much of an issue, right?
Yes, you're right. But a lot of these economic policies that I think we see as the institution, it's about the institution. What is the institution not doing for you? And I don't know what it is about white women with college degrees where they're hurting, but I do think that they're trying to solve some sort of economic policy. We don't know.
Suburban white women decide North Carolina and Mecklenburg, which is Charlotte, and in Wake, which is Raleigh. But having been in North Carolina enough now, they don't vote policy or politics, they vote the person. I thought that would hurt Donald Trump because the narrative had been all about him being a horrible person for quite some time, and so much of North Carolina had already voted by today, or yesterday now, and I thought it would hurt him much more, and it didn't. They ended up shifting on Obamacare, based on the information I have from Senate candidates there, Obamacare, and also the emails. They got really nervous about that. The Comey story freaked them out.
And voters were willing to forgive all of his flaws, his many, many flaws, and you're going to look inside the numbers and negatives that no politician should ever have. They're willing to forgive it because he was their device to go to Washington and change things.
Well, and obviously it helped that his opponent was the second, had the second worst favorables in American presidential election
But one thing
history.
to keep in mind, Democrats always turn out for a message of hope, and Republicans turn out of fear. That's something that people who have studied messaging, political messaging, know. And the Democrats didn't focus enough on hope. It was all about combating Donald Trump, and I think that had to do with the turnout.
Well, and again, the numbers were depressed across the board for Democrats. So, Kevin, we did spend a disproportionate amount of time yesterday talking about how would Hillary Clinton deal with a Republican Congress. What would she do to reach across the aisle? We entertained briefly the idea that if the Republicans did what they did last night, by the way, hold the congressional majorities, we have now the likely, it's an effective governance. The gridlock that we saw perhaps is not will not come to pass, at least in theory, at where we stand now. So the first 100 days, how important is it that Donald Trump frankly give a gift, not reach across Nile, but give a gift to begin the healing process of that which we spoke? What do you see these first 100 days being like?
Look, I think his most important priority is immigration, and I think he's going to focus on that. And he's probably going to also pick a Supreme Court justice, and that would probably be somebody that the Senate Republicans like because they've seen his list. And if he sticks to that list, it'll be a good one. And this is just the most stunning part of last night is that we end up today, 24 hours from yesterday when we were talking, with all three branches of government. Basically, we've got the Supreme Court now, probably, and we've got the House and Senate, and so you can see some real governance. And I think he's going to do immigration. I think he'll do tax reform, and I think we're going to have to see what he wants to do on trade.
Okay, do immigration, but let's just say immigration.
Is that?
Is it the deportation force that he promised?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to find a lot of support for that. I think if you look at those numbers,
Can he not have a deportation force given what he said on the campaign trail?
Well, he was kind of fuzzy on that, wasn't he? He said he would, and then he wouldn't. And he said one thing in the primaries, and then he got to the general and said something else. And I don't think he's willing to fight that fight. I think what he's going to do is try to secure the border, whatever that means to him. Build the wall, beautiful. Whether or not Mexico pays for it or not, that's kind of irrelevant to the American people. They want border security. They want to feel like they've fixed that problem. Then he's going to take care of the undocumented.
You think the walls? You think that it's irrelevant? That's been the cornerstone.
He's a branding genius and a marketer, whatever he calls it. I think border security will.
So the wall has now become a figurative idea for border security.
It became in the last 3 months of the campaign a figurative idea.
I don't know how it can. I don't know how it can be. I think he was very serious about it. And every time that the Mexican president said they wouldn't pay for it, he said, "I'm going to build." They just got 10 feet taller, and everyone went crazy. That was his mantra. I think he is going to try and build it. I don't know how he does it, but if he doesn't, that's going to be one of his biggest campaign promises that catapulted him to the nomination and, quite frankly, possibly the presidency. If he goes back on that fundamental promise, he's going to have a problem. But he did talk about, too, infrastructure. I think he's definitely going to try and address infrastructure for sure, because then you have a lot of people getting jobs almost immediately. You can look like you're making good. And remember, as president, I think Hillary would have done this to progressives. She could have put forth policies that she knew wouldn't pass to placate progressives. Donald Trump could potentially put forth some things and play politics that he knows the Congress may not let him do to try and appear that that's what he wanted to do.
Not when it's his Congress, though. He's
right.
the leader of his party.
Right. There goes my point in that you can't hide behind Pelosi anymore. You can't hide behind Reid anymore. This is our deal. This is our governance. If we don't do it now, you're never going to do it.
Kevin, can I ask you on the immigration front? Because yesterday there was some thinking inside Republican circles that Donald Trump was an aberration, that he was outside the party, that fundamentally if he lost, the party was going to course correct back to the 2013 autopsy and expand the tent. Is that thinking now out of the window? Is the thinking now Donald Trump was right, he understood the silent majority, that's where our party's at, and if it means a more extreme border security with less path to citizenship in our immigration reform plan, so be it?
I don't think it's an either or. I think it's, look, the autopsy was correct in one way, and how you speak to certain demographics is very important because you can turn them off. Apparently, you can also overcome that if you have just enough of the right message and a very unpopular opponent, which Donald Trump did. So I wouldn't take away, there will be a new autopsy or a new plan going forward. And look, the Democratic Party needs to do an autopsy right now. That's the real issue here. The Republicans, we've been in the spotlight forever talking about what did we do wrong to end up here? How are we dividing and splitting up? The Democratic Party is going to have to ask themselves, how did they end up with a candidate so unpopular, a dynasty candidate, so unpopular that she lost to Donald Trump?
She ran the DNC.
Or the DNC.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is that, as we saw through WikiLeaks, it's like we don't want to go and rehash this all now, but a couple of days after President Obama got elected, they started setting the course. That's how it happened.
Nomiki Konst, Kevin Sheridan, Hogan Gidley.
Case closed.
As always, we very much appreciate it. You'll be with us all day, so save it.